Part 85. Holy Dragon Totem. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 843. Unexpectedly, the moment it was blown away, the black head instantly turned around, and a pair of eyes met with Ning Mufeng. Zhang Zizai had just endured the lethality of the nine-headed monster's eyes, and before he could say a word of warning, Ning Mufeng fell into dizziness. In the blink of an eye, the head fell on his shoulder, stretched out countless blood vessels, and deeply pierced into Ning Mufeng's body. The scene was absolutely disgusting. Yao. I hope readers will remember our domain name Taiwan Novel Network rightward arrow. On the other side, Yun Xiao also failed to escape, and her fate was exactly the same as Ning Mufeng. Both of them were parasitized by the last two heads of the nine-headed monster. They fell into an absolute passive situation. More importantly, because they made a sound, everyone inside heard the movement. Who? Xuanhuan looked outside with cold eyes. After rushing out, he saw Zhang Ziyai in front of the four of them. Who are you? How can you come in here? Xuanhuan gritted his teeth and tried his best to control his calmness. Zhang Zizai had no time to deal with him. He and Xuanhuan took action directly. Xuanhuan took out her snow-white god-level totem weapon and directly chopped off the head on Yun Xiao's shoulder. Unexpectedly, Yun Xiao actually used her head to block the sword. This was completely clear that most of them were controlled. Trouble, Zhang Zizai temporarily ignored Xuanhuan. Xuanhuan did not dare to participate in the melee. Even he, the ancient god, could not do anything about the nine-headed monster, and he was also unable to suppress Zhang Zizai and the others. The most urgent task was to save Yun Xiao and the others. What should I do, seeing that Yun Xiao and Ning Mufeng were about to commit suicide and fight with them? Xuanhuan was so anxious that her face turned pale, especially Yun Xiao, who was her best friend who grew up together and was as close as a sister. Seeing her like this, how could she not panic in her heart? There were too many real tests this time. Even though she was stronger than Zhang Zizai, she repeatedly felt that her strength was not enough. She was now eager to become a god, at least becoming a god would allow him to save the people she cared about. Only after abandoning identity and status, will the purest desire for power arise. Xuanhuan is on the right path. The power in her heart has long been expanding, but it is not yet time for a real transformation. For her, this kind of life and death experience is the real experience. It is not meaningless that the king of the gods arranged some friends for her to come. Save them first. Don't panic. We are not controlled and can perform better. Zhang Zizai was still calm. After all, he was not the one who was hit, and he didn't have much affection for these two people. He could perform better by keeping calm. Roar. Without saying a word, he burst out with a blue dragon roar. Anyway, Xuanhuan had already discovered them. This close-up sound shocked the two heads attached to Yun Xiao and Ning Mufeng. Soul-binding net. Zhang Zizai couldn't take care of Shan and the others now. When they were parasitized, they were still in a state of confusion and competition between the two. At this time, they couldn't exert their full combat power. For example, Yun Xiao put her fingers on the guqin, but she couldn't play any music at all. She and Ning Mufeng were of special types, and they needed a lot of concentration when fighting. It was actually more difficult for the nine-headed monster to kill them by manipulating their bodies. At this time, Zhang Zizai directly tied Yun Xiao tightly with the soul-binding net. After the soul-binding net was tightened, her perfect figure was revealed. If it weren't for the strange head on the shoulder, Zhang Zizai might have to hide and admire it for a few times. It was too late now. After he controlled Yun Xiao with the soul-binding net, he hurriedly said to Xuanhuan, "Go. Chop it up." Xuanhuan naturally knew who he was. "Can you control it?" she said worriedly, because when she started, Yun Xiao almost came up to her and died. "Stop talking nonsense, after all, Yun Xiao was stronger than Yan Qingqi. If she struggled, it would be very difficult for the soul-binding net to completely control her. Fortunately, Suyuexi acted decisively and pierced through with a sword. Even under the control of the soul-binding net, the nine-headed monster still suppressed Yun Xiao and wanted to use her to block the sword. However, at this moment, Zhang Zizai's palm shot out an infinite, time-breaking ticket and directly hit Yun Xiao, who was close at hand. In this instant, Yun Xiao did not move at all, and Suyuexi's long sword pierced through and cut off the head. Huh! Zhang Zizai quickly added a type of infinite sky-splitting slash, which directly shattered the flying head. Ah! Yun Xiao let out a painful howl. The nine-headed monster had grown into her body, so after being chopped off, the pain caused to her was almost equivalent to cutting off one of her arms, and a bloody cut appeared on her shoulder. Yao Suyuexi felt so distressed, but Zhang Zizai was quick to stick a few holy light talismans on it. At least this effect was fast, which could help Yun Xiao quickly relieve the pain and speed up the healing of the wound. Then she could use spiritual medicine to heal it. Zhang Zizai, thank you. Yun Xiao knew how much he played a role in this process. Yet Zhang Zizai had no time to be grateful, because Ning Mufeng was still attacking Suyuexi during this process. Now Suyuexi was fighting with him, but she couldn't stop Ning Mufeng, which made her very passive. Every time she wanted to chop off the nine-headed monster's head with a sword, it blocked it with Ning Mufeng's body, leaving Suyuexi helpless. After Zhang Zizai gave Yun Xiao the holy light talisman, he immediately rushed up at this critical moment. First, he stabbed Ning Mufeng with a soul-chasing stab, causing the nine-headed monster and him to fall into soul pain, and then the soul-binding net directly wrapped around him, almost repeating the same old trick. Get ready, Zhang Zizai gave Suyuexi a look, and Suyuexi was completely facing him. At the moment when the sword penetrated, the nine-headed monster couldn't hide even if he wanted to, because at this moment Zhang Zizai's infinite time-breaking blade instantly hit him, making Ning Mufeng's body completely unable to move. Suyuexi cut Ning Mufeng's shoulder again with a sword, and Zhang Zizai followed up with the infinite sky-breaking slash to make up for it in time. Bang! The nine-headed monster shattered another head. The two of them cooperated seamlessly, as if they had cooperated countless times, but in fact, this was a tacit understanding between them. Ning Mufeng was also saved. Suyuexi quickly protected them. After seeing that they were finally safe and sound, her eyes were slightly red, and her nervous mood finally calmed down. 11 I was really scared. Yun Xiao had no place to cry. Now she was still pale and frightened. She could only hold Ning Mufeng's arm, but Ning Mufeng himself was still frightened. Holy Dragon Totem. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 844. Brother Zhang, thank you, Ning Mufeng said quickly to Zhang Zizai. Until now, he was in front of Zhang Zizai, and he had many thoughts. First of all, Zhang Zizai had never been interested in Yun Xiao, and it was already clear that the matter between him and Qin Yi was a frame-up. Zhang Zizai could only being interested in Suyuexi has nothing to do with him. After thinking about it, especially when Zhang Zizai saved him this time, he naturally let go of those boring thoughts. This nine-headed monster is really scary. Fortunately, the remaining 7 heads were on the blood god cult's body, otherwise they wouldn't be able to be chopped off cleanly. Zhang Zizai's eyes were already connected with Xuemingzi's at the door. In fact, Xuemingzi had been watching them deal with this problem. It wasn't until this time that they were completely resolved, and Xuemingzi said, "You two are really lucky not to be parasitized. You two, why don't you also help me and let me solve this problem? If I don't help, the junior brothers and sisters may die." Suyuexi was about to say something when Zhang Zizai asked her to step back and he would do it himself. After we help you, will it be convenient for you to kill us all? Zhang Zizai asked with a raised eyebrow. Now that their whereabouts are exposed, I can honestly say that if they were not parasitized by the nine-headed monster, Zhang Zizai and the others would be in great danger. After all, this is an ancient god with a god-level totem weapon. This friend, you should also be disciples of the great section. How dare we mess around? And no matter what, if you help us, you will be our savior. Although we have entered the ruins of the god of death, there is a certain amount of competition. Relationship, but killing the gods, the trace itself is full of dangers. I think it's okay for us to share the treasure inside together. After all, a drop of water should be repaid by a spring. Your status should be very noble. We really don't have the guts to mess around. You definitely think too badly of us, Xuanhuan said with a bitter smile. This sentence confused Yun Xiao and the others. Yun Xiao lowered her head and asked Ning Mufeng, is he afraid of our identity? Now that it has been exposed, if he saves them, is it possible to join forces with us to go down there? They are also parasitized and look very pitiful. Yao, you are a woman's benevolent person. Let Zhang Zizai decide this matter. He can think more clearly, Ning Mufeng said. In fact, Xuanhuan also hesitated because he knew there would be no benefit in offending this Xuanhuan. However, Zhang Zizai was not as sincere as them. The reason why he did not let Xuanhuan speak was because he was afraid that she would not understand. After Xuanhuan finished, Zhang Zizai said with a dumb smile, in order to enter the ruins of the god of death, a person uses assessment to recruit disciples. Scam, killed tens of thousands. Young Rao, ancient god, is it possible that after we pose a threat to him, he won't kill us cleanly? Xuanhuan, if you say this, you are treating us as fools. Who doesn't know that since we both appear here, the result will be just don't stop until you die. His tone was very firm, directly denying Yun Xiao and the others' slightly true thoughts. What he said also made the three of them immediately understand that if they believed in people like Xuanhuan at this time, they would definitely die without a burial place. You know all this, Xuanhuan was a little surprised. Do it, Zhang Zizai said to Xuanhuan directly. This is the best time to kill them. Now even Xuanhuan is controlled by the nine-headed monster and cannot display the strength of his ancient god. He must not dare to join the battle. There is a reason. After being discovered again, it would be really stupid not to take action now. You guys are cruel. Let's wait and see. After Zhang Zizai and Xuanhuan chased after him, Xuanhuan turned around and left. His movements were indeed unlucky. The nine-headed monster seemed to be eager for Zhang Zizai to kill Xuanhuan. So they deliberately disrupted and started a real fight. Now that Zhang Zizai and Xuanhuan join forces, they may really be able to kill Xuanhuan. We must kill both the human and the nine-headed monster. If either of us is left behind, we will be dead, Zhang Zizai said seriously to Xuanhuan. This is actually difficult to operate, because as long as either party is left, they can completely control their bodies and fight Zhang Zizai wholeheartedly. Even if the nine-headed monster is not familiar with the ancient god's body, it will not be easy to deal with. Now it can be done to a certain extent, capital, all because the two of them are competing with each other. You guys are definitely dead. No matter who you are, you will all die here. Although it's a pity for a beauty like you, but you asked for it, you can't blame me. Xuanhuan ran away directly. Using all his strength, I lost my strength and my left and right feet were very uncoordinated, but I managed to escape to the apse. There is a door in the back hall, and only the dark mist can be seen behind the door. Zhang Zizai, the two of them plus Jingfeng Longke almost caught up, but after all, Xuanhuan reacted in time and rushed into the back hall first. Was swallowed up by the black mist, and disappeared directly. Zhang Zizai and the others also chased in, but after finding that the surroundings were surrounded by black mist and they couldn't find Xuanhuan at all, they fell into a lot of trouble. Do you want to continue chasing? Xuanhuan could only ask him. We can't catch up, and the two of them are still outside, Zhang Zizai said. Once they catch up, it is not certain whether they can come back. Yan Qingqi doesn't know where he is now. If Ning Mufeng and Yun Ziao are lost again, Suyuexi will definitely be hit even harder. The most important thing at the moment is that everyone can be intact. And Zhang Zizai has other plans. They withdrew directly. After returning to the middle hall, they found that the remaining 6 disciples of the Blood God sect were still fighting each other. Ning Mufeng and Yun Ziao were standing in the distance worriedly. When they saw Zhang Zizai and the others after the 2 of them, they finally breathed a sigh of relief. "Have you caught up?" Yun Ziao asked. "No, he ran very fast. There was fog behind him. He couldn't be too far away from you." Suyuexi pointed at Zhang Zizai and said. Yun Ziao and Ning Mufeng looked at Zhang Zizai with gratitude. He was still thinking about them at this time, which showed that Zhang Zizai was really good. In fact, Suyuexi came out like this to make them recognize Zhang Zizai more. Their eyes were fixed on the other disciples of the Blood God section. These disciples were all in the 9th level of the initial God realm. If they were not parasitized by the 9-headed monster, they would pose a great threat to Zhang Zizai and others. Once the 9-headed monster parasitizes, it cannot fall off unless it sucks everything out of the host. Suyuexi narrowed her eyes and said. "So, they are also desperate." Zhang Zizai understood. "How do you want to deal with them?" Suyuexi asked. "Kill them all." Zhang Zizai said these words without hesitation. So, Suyuexi and the other 3 were not used to this method. In a place like this, if you don't kill them at the best opportunity, they will come next and make you fall into irreparable destruction. You don't have to choose to do it. "I'll do it myself." Zhang Zizai rolled his eyes. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Holy Dragon Totem. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 845. Has the Blood God camp not taught them a lesson yet? Is this the time to be merciful? I'll go with you. Suyuexi did not let Zhang Zizai down. She spoke directly and followed Zhang Zizai, her eyes becoming firmer. Remember, don't give the 9-headed monster a chance, kill them both. Understood. At this point, although Zhang Zizai's own strength was average, he was definitely the backbone of the team. At this time, Qingfeng Longke also joined the battlefield. Ning Mufeng and Yun Ziao looked at each other, and they all took action. With their abilities, they could completely help Zhang Zizai control their opponents. For example, separate these 6 people. Zhang Zizai targeted the woman named Kikai, and the soul-binding net directly entangled her and trapped her. When locking the woman, Zhang Zizai did not forget the proud and admiring look when she killed tens of thousands of people with the blood darkness. Infinite time-breaking blade. A stream of chi swept through and instantly hit Chi, who was entangled in the soul-binding net. Suyuexi rarely killed people, but facing such a woman, she actually hated her from the bottom of her heart. At this time, Zhang Zizai forced her to do something. She could only bite the bullet and use 2 swords in a row. One sword pierced through the source, and the other sword cut off the head of the 9-headed monster. The source was penetrated, and there was no doubt that he would die. The next moment, Zhang Zizai followed up with the infinite sky-splitting slash and tore the flying head of the 9-headed monster directly. He was absolutely fast, fierce and accurate when he took action, and he was swift and resolute, and he would never give the enemy a chance to breathe. Suyuexi glanced at him a few times. In fact, she deeply understood that this man who had killed from the totem world to the divine realm had taught him many things that no one else had taught. The first target was directly solved. Zhang Zizai locked the next 2 targets without saying a word. Yun Ziao and Qingfeng Longke continued to fight with others, allowing Zhang Zizai and the others to continue to harvest. Then, the second person, Tang Ziqian, died in battle with the 9-headed monster. At this time, the nine-headed monster was already anxious and wanted to flee everywhere. After all, they chose to parasitize and could not fall off. However, there were only 4 people left at this time. Even Qingfen Longke could suppress 2 of them. In addition, Yun Ziao and Ningmu Fen each fought 1. Even if the nine-headed monster and the disciples of the blood god cult reached a consensus, they could not escape together, because after Zhang Zizai and Suyuexi locked 1 person, the remaining 3 people were completely suppressed by Yun Ziao and others. Puff puff puff. The 2 harvested all the way and completely blocked the exit. The disciples of the blood god cult begged for mercy one after another, and cursed when they failed to beg for mercy, but unfortunately they did not shake Zhang Zizai. Zhang Zizai only needs to remember one thing, that is, they have done something unreasonable. Even if he doesn't want to take the place of Xingdao, he has to think about his own life, because people like the blood god cult will not show mercy when they have the opportunity to kill Zhang Zizai. They are in the blood god camp and are together. In the face of an absolute opportunity, it is a mature method to strike first. Only in this way can we completely get rid of this nine-headed monster. When the last skirt was on the ground, Suyuexi's face was pale. She helped Zhang Zizai stand up. She pulled Zhang Zizai's arm and leaned on her body. Her face looked a little bad. "What's wrong?" Zhang Zizai asked. "I'm a little uncomfortable. The world seems a little too ferocious." Suyuexi's beautiful profile was a little dim. "The world is inherently ferocious, so we need strong people with righteous hearts to uphold justice. I'm not, but you can be. For example, if you come here, if you practice not to punish evil and promote good but to bully others, what's the point? Only with great significance can you go further. Then what is the meaning of your practice?" Suyuexi looked at him blankly with her beautiful eyes. Zhang Zizai was stunned for a moment. Actually, he had the answer in his heart. He thought about his lovely relatives, lovers, brothers, and sisters. He said firmly, "I have no ambitions. The meaning of my progress is to protect those who are important to me. I want to be immortal and want them to live forever because I love them." The people he loves are Juxian and Lingdang, his parents, his brother, his sister and younger sister, Lu Dingxing, Bai Shenjin and Wanqian, and Feng Xiaoxiao, Bai Yingying, and others. "You are really different, but you are impressive." Suyuexi looked at him with bright eyes. Maybe she felt that until this time, she really understood Zhang Zizai. "I seem to have fallen in love with you a little." "What should I do?" Suyuexi said distressedly. "It's simple. Find a place, undress, and have a fierce physical collision and spiritual communication." Zhang Zizai smiled. "Get lost." "Okay." Such vulgarity, no chance for love, Suyuexi pouted. She felt this was a disguised rejection, unless she agreed to his intense collision, but, how could that be possible? Zhang Zizai didn't really get lost. After leaving Suyuexi, he actually searched the bodies of the blood god cult disciples and took out the space jade pendants one by one. "What are you doing?" Suyuexi asked curiously. "You want to take their dirty things too?" Yun Ziao asked. "You want to share some of the things you got in the God Killer ruins with me, does it count?" Zhang Zizai asked. "Of course it counts." Suyuexi wanted to become a god. Those so-called treasures, if she really wanted them, she would have as many as she wanted. "That's settled." Zhang Zizai smiled and took out all the black swords from the jade pendants. There were exactly 30 of them. After wiping them clean, each one was a top-grade dry-level divine weapon. Although I didn't know what the name was, it was almost the same as the original God-Killing and God-Killing. The sword energy and penetration were basically the same, and they seemed to pose a threat to the ancient gods. "I remember you have similar weapons," Suyuexi asked. "Yes." At this time, Zhang Zizai took out the God-Killing Xianbing and placed it in the middle of the 30 weapons. The moment the God-Killing Xianbing appeared, a miracle happened. Those black swords quickly vibrated and made a sharp chirping sound. This was an excited sound. In this chirping, the 30 swords quickly gathered together, galloped over, and all wrapped around the god-killing Xianbing. Under the watchful eyes of the crowd, the 31 weapons began to merge, just like the last fusion, but this time the momentum was even greater. All the totem patterns gathered together and condensed into a word kill, which appeared on the brand new sword blade. The aura of this weapon instantly increased to a terrifying level, and the vast and explosive murderous aura like the vast ocean surged out, causing the surroundings to fall into a dead silence. This is the real 33 killing gods and mysterious weapons. At this moment, Zhang Zizai felt that the aura of this magic weapon was even stronger and wilder than the blood prison sealing sword. When he held it in his hand, endless power even flowed into his body, making his eyes like yin and yang fish more sharp and murderous. God-level totem magic weapon. The three of them exclaimed and looked at Zhang Zizai with envy. Holy Dragon Totem. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 846. It is incredible that more than 30 dry-level totem weapons can be combined to become a god-level totem weapon. When Zhang Zizai controlled the 33 killing gods, his temperament changed. Such a weapon can definitely greatly improve his combat effectiveness. There are not many people who can master god-level totem weapons in the semi-god realm. Those who exist are almost all supreme talents in the divine realm, such as Xuanhuan. Ningmu Feng and Yun Ziao are also very talented, but they have not mastered god-level totem weapons yet. As we all know, Zhang Zizai has the Demon Lord Cauldron, which makes him invincible in the initial god realm. Now he can master the second god-level totem weapon. Xuanhuan has not been able to do this. She also knows the difficulty of mastering two god-level totem weapons. So when she saw that Zhang Zizai could still have such good fortune, her eyes lit up a lot. I didn't see it at first. Although you, brother Zhang, are not a disciple trained by the God King Palace, you may be as talented as us, especially in mastering the divine totem weapons, Ningmu Feng said in surprise. The experience just now has made him completely let go of his grudges. I dare not, I dare not. I am already this old, and there is no room for comparison with you noble people, Zhang Zizai said modestly. Don't come on, Xuanhuan rolled her eyes. This harvest surprised everyone, but in fact, the current situation is still dangerous. The key is that Yan Qingqi's disappearance is like a mountain pressing on them, and it is difficult to relax. Zhang Zizai put away the enviable 33 killing god Xianbing. He currently understands that he is not an ancient god, so naturally he cannot exert the full power of this weapon. From the current level of his understanding, the 33 killing god Xianbing has an ability called 33 killings, which can divide Zhang Zizai's lethality into 33 sections and burst out in succession, achieving a more terrifying lethality effect. The burst of the 33 sword chi of the god of death, which is based on the power of the source of destruction, is extremely fierce, several times stronger than when only 3 weapons were fused before. If the opponent does not have a god-level totem weapon, it is very easy for Zhang Zizai to crush him. Putting away the god of death's mysterious weapon, Zhang Zizai's expression also became solemn. Xuanhuan let him take the treasure of the god of death's ruins as agreed, which was very good to him. He also had to think of a way to see what to do next. Although there is still a 9-headed monster on Xuemingzi, he has already fled. With his ability as an ancient god, he is still a very terrible threat to us, and it is possible that all 4 of us will die at any time, Zhang Zizai said seriously. He entered the back hall, and the back hall looks foggy and more dangerous. Xuanhuan looked behind, with a slightly worried look in her eyes. Are you going in? Yun Ziao asked worriedly. You must go in. You can't stay outside either. You can't separate from now on. The danger here is certain, Zhang Zizai teased Xingfeng Longke. Yeah, Yun Ziao could only nod. Yao I will protect you, Ningmu Feng said. You two should stay together, Zhang Zizai said. Where is Qingqi? Xuanhuan frowned, worried. I don't know. Since he is not in the front hall or the middle hall, he may be in the back hall. However, who brought him to the back hall is very important to us. I think it can be understood that in addition to Xuemingzi, we have another enemy. This enemy may come from the god-killing ruins itself, just like the nine-headed monster before Zhang Zizai said. Since we have come here, we can only be more careful in the face of these threats. Let's work together. Suyuixi was also very serious. When she was in the God King Palace, she didn't have so much sense of crisis. After entering the god-killing ruins, everything she encountered was even more cold. Now she is experiencing a completely different life. Let's go. Zhang Zizai came to the door of the back hall and used the God Breath Talisman to explore directly. The result of the exploration told him that the back hall was larger than he imagined. Within the exploration range, there seemed to be 2 or 3 lives. This also confirmed some of Zhang Zizai's speculations. This back hall is the last part of the god-killing ruins. If there is a treasure, it should be in the back hall, Zhang Zizai said. The 4 of them walked in together. Zhang Zizai walked in front, Suyuixi was beside him, Yun Ziao and Ning Mufeng held hands tightly behind him, and the 4 of them walked forward while looking around vigilantly. The fog here was too heavy, and the range they could see with their cultivation was only a few feet at most, and this distance could be reached instantly for the strong. Under Zhang Zizai's arrangement, Ning Mufeng was mainly responsible for the vision behind him, and the other 3 were responsible for the front and left and right, and then took care of the top and the ground together. He used the God Breath Talisman to grasp the position of other lives at any time, but the fog here had a great impact on his God Breath Talisman, and the effect was unstable and inaccurate. They walked forward in the fog, and it felt like a maze. They walked halfway and didn't seem to have reached the end. Be patient, there is always something special here, Zhang Zizai said in a deep voice. Patience is extremely important in such a dangerous environment. There's someone over there, Yun Ziao suddenly called out after about half an hour. She was responsible for the vision on the left. When she spoke, the 4 people's hearts jumped and they gathered together. Zhang Zizai saw the figure on the other side in an instant. In order to determine whether it was alive, he instantly used the God Breath Talisman. In fact, he had used the God Breath Talisman before, and probably felt that there would be no one nearby. Sure enough, the God Breath Talisman did not react to the figure, and the figure did not seem to move. Don't panic, it may not be a person. Go and have a look, Zhang Zizai said in a deep voice. His voice was stable enough, and it could also bring a certain safety benefit to his teammates in this terrifying atmosphere. Okay. The 4 people approached the figure. If the other party was alive, they should know that they were approaching at this time, but they still did not move. Obviously, this should not be a person. When they stood in front of the figure, the 4 people looked at each other and saw the incredible look in each other's eyes. This figure stood on this empty ground. I thought it was a statue or a puppet. Now I see that it is really a person with flesh and bones. However, he has completely lost his voice and should be dead. He was wearing pitch black armor that almost covered his entire body. His head was lowered, and he actually had a hand stretched out with the palm facing up, as if he wanted someone to put their palm on his. Holy Dragon Totem. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 847. This person is exactly the same as the statue in the front hall. He is very likely the owner of this god-killing ruins, Zhang Zizai said. This is a corpse. This corpse is not put into a coffin or buried. Instead, it stands here and stretches out a hand, as if asking for something from someone. He has been in this posture for who knows how many years. This scene is extremely weird. But Zhang Zizai can be sure that this is a god corpse. Over countless years, his body has not decayed and remains in its original state, but the flesh and bones of the god body have long changed into another substance. Although it is still hard and solid, there is no life at all. Xuanhuan and the others are knowledgeable, and after identifying it, they also relaxed a little. This should be the corpse of the god of killing. This person is known as the god of killing. I wonder how powerful he was when he was alive. He can preserve the corpse of the god of killing today, which should be very good. By the way, he left this relic of the god of killing and did not bury it in the ground. It seems that there is a legacy left. It should be. After the death of the ancient gods, especially the top ancient gods, if they are not killed on the spot, they can transform their souls into God's will and store them. Once they meet a destined person, they can pass on their mantle. For us mortals who have not yet become gods, God's will can be integrated into our souls and nourish our souls to the extent of semi-god souls. Once we have inherited God's will and have a semi-god soul, our own soul realm will be greatly improved. When we become gods in the future, it will be much easier to transform into a god soul. Moreover, if the ancient gods leave behind God's will, they will generally leave their own accomplishments in it, and directly pass on God's will to their descendants. This is the conversation between Yun Xiao and Ning Mufeng. It's like this. When I was 10 years old, my father found a relic for me. There was a god's will left by an ancient god. I inherited his will, and now my soul is in the state of semi-god soul Xuanhuan. If this god of killing really left behind the god of killing will, then his inheritance is the greatest treasure of this god of killing relic. This kind of inheritance makes it easier for people to become gods, and after becoming gods, there are even many guidance. He wants to pass on his fortune forever in this way. If that's the case, then try it. Maybe after getting the god of killing inheritance, you can become a god immediately. If you can become a god, we will be more active here, and we may be able to control this god of killing relic to a certain extent, Zhang Zizai said. 11 you have experience, try it quickly. We will protect you. Xuanhuan should not have found this place yet, we have to speed up, Ning Mufeng said. Xuanhuan thought about it and said, okay, then I'll do it as soon as possible. She herself has obtained a kind of inheritance of the will of the god of killing and has experience in this area. She glanced at Zhang Zizai and hesitated for a moment, but Zhang Zizai urged her to hurry up. She thought that Zhang Zizai's realm was not very high now, and he might not be able to inherit such an inheritance, so she finally walked forward by herself. Zhang Zizai used the divine breath talisman to observe the surrounding situation while looking at Xuanhuan's condition. Senior, I'm sorry to disturb your peace. If you have a legacy that you want to carry forward, if I am lucky enough to inherit it, I will definitely not fail my mission. Xuanhuan was able to put down his lofty status and say this in front of this god of killing corpse, which has changed a lot. In fact, her heart has long been completely different from before. It was in this dangerous environment that she forgot her identity and status and Sarao's sincerity. It also made her learn how to treat others with sincerity. After talking to the god of killing corpse, Xuanhuan stretched out her white palm and gently placed it on the palm that the god of killing corpse stretched out. He stretched out his hand for countless years and waited for countless years. Finally, someone put his palm on his palm. At the moment of contact, the eyes of the god of killing trembled, and his flesh and blood skin actually emitted a sickle-like luster. Those lusters had been silent for countless years, and now gradually shone, and then gathered towards Xuanhuan's hand through the intersection of the palms. Xuanhuan also closed her eyes to feel the inheritance power from the god of killing. It is indeed the inheritance of God's will. It has begun, Yun Xiao exclaimed softly. If it was just an ordinary ancient god inheritance, it would not be precious to her. Her parents were actually looking for the inheritance of the God of God for her, but the inheritance of the God of God was relatively rare. Of course, the inheritance of the God of killing in front of them could be hard won. This was obtained by themselves without relying on their parents, and the meaning was completely different. At present, it is unknown how long this inheritance will take, and they can only wait, but Zhang Zizai can basically be sure that once she gets the inheritance, they can at least take a lot of initiative. It's just that during the period of accepting the inheritance, if there is no accident, it will be more difficult because of the lack of Su Yuxi's combat power. Zhang Zizai is a little worried. What's depressing is that the more you worry about something, the more it will appear. Just as Su Yuxi accepted the inheritance, Zhang Zizai began to use the Divine Breath Talisman to explore the breath of the surrounding creatures. At this moment, the Divine Breath Talisman responded that a very powerful creature was coming towards this side. He was moving forward aimlessly, but the direction happened to be where they were, and this person was not far away from them. This was bad luck, but it was also possible that this person also had the means to find Zhang Zizai in this fog. Someone is coming, Zhang Zizai frowned. Hu, Yun Xiao and Ning Mufeng's faces turned much paler. They followed Zhang Zizai's gaze and looked in that direction. A figure had appeared in that direction and gradually became clearer. If Su Yuxi was not receiving the inheritance, they could have avoided it in advance. Now he found this person, and this person basically found him. It's really hard to find it, but it's easy to get it. The man gritted his teeth and quickly stepped forward. He appeared in front of them. It was the blood god cult's Xuemingzi. Zhang Zizai's eyes fell on his shoulder. The head of the nine-headed monster was still there. It seemed that he had not gotten rid of the nine-headed monster, but this head was already bloody and fleshy. It seemed that Xuemingzi had the upper hand in the competition and almost severely damaged the nine-headed monster. It might not be long before he could completely twist this head off. It happened that at this time, Zhang Zizai met them. Inheritance. The inheritance of the god of killing. After seeing Su Yuxi and the corpse of the god of killing, his eyes were completely hot. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Holy Dragon Totem. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 848. If the ancient god did not die on the spot and his soul was destroyed, he usually had two choices before his death. The first is that the soul travels through the totem world and finds the fetus to be reincarnated. This is the method chosen by the 9 Immortals. The chance of successful reincarnation is very low, but once successful, you can come back like the 9 Immortals. But in fact, maybe 10,000 people may not be able to succeed. The tribulation of reincarnation is indeed terrible. The second option is to transform the soul into the will of God, pass it down, and wait for the destined person to inherit your legacy. For the dying god, of these two choices, the second is dedication, and the first is risk, but once the risk is successful, it will be reincarnation and return. Normally, they would choose the first option over the second option. It is precisely because of this that the inheritance of ancient gods is so rare, and you are lucky to find it. This way is to benefit others. For Su Yuxi and the others, their parents were in charge, and they looked down upon the normal inheritance of the ancient gods. But for Xuemingzi, this is a unique treasure that drives him crazy. Even if he has become a god, the guidance in the will of God is of great significance to him. Every ancient god has his own limit. If this killing god corpse once had much higher attainments than Xuemingzi, then if Xuemingzi can inherit this inheritance, he can also hope to get the level of this killing god corpse. He has just become an ancient god, and the one who can transmit the will of God for such a long time must be at a much higher level than Xuemingzi. The progress after becoming a god is really difficult for Xuemingzi. At this time, his eyes were extremely fiery. The moment he saw Su Yuxi inheriting, the blood prison sealing sword in his hand slashed out a stream of blood prison sealing sword chi, heading directly towards Su Yuxi. Zhang Zizai was nearby. At this critical moment, he suddenly rushed out and controlled the Demon Lord's cauldron to resist. The opponent's attack was too fierce, and he had no other option for a while. Boom! The Demon Lord's cauldron shook, and Zhang Zizai was thrown out, flipping over for a moment. Although the Demon Lord's cauldron blocked a lot of the lethal force, his blood was still boiling, and his body was almost torn apart. God-level totem weapon? Haha. Seeing the Demon Lord cauldron on Zhang Zizai, Xuanhuan smiled. He felt that he was so lucky. Your status must be very noble. In fact, I expected that you are also a talented disciple of a top section. I am probably only 30 or 40 years old. Under ordinary circumstances, even if I become a god, you will definitely not take it seriously. But it's dark here, the calls should not be heard. The calls and the earth are no longer working. You have so many precious treasures on your body, which are all cheap to me, and there are two beauties of this level that I have never dared to hope for before. Babies and beauties can make people crazy. Xuanhuan covered his forehead and chuckled. His eyes were bloodshot and his skin had long been pale white, which proved that he had spent a lot of energy fighting the nine-headed monster. It turns out that the nine-headed monster still has a great restriction and consumption on you. If not for this, I would have died just now. Zhang Zizai got up. He knew that this might be their only advantage. The ancient gods in their full glory, and them it is impossible to deal with it. Fortunately, the ancient god in front of him is also in a very bad state. It was only better than when Zhang Zizai was chasing him. He signaled with Yun Ziao and Ning Mufeng, and there was a stronger Qingfeng dragon bird beside him. If the three of them and a source beast joined forces, it would be great if they could support Suyuxi's success in succession. Really? Even so, I, Xuanhuan, can now play with you, these superior dogs, with applause. Everything in this killing god ruins, including your treasure, Mei Rao's body, belongs to me. People. Don't worry, I don't want to leave here in the short term. I need to digest the inheritance of the god of death. These two beauties must be ready to serve me day and night. Haha, they are 10,000 more beautiful and noble than Chi-Chi and Tangzikian. Times. He fell into ecstasy, with treasures and beauties before his eyes. This seemed to be an opportunity given to him by God. Seeing Chu Chudong, Rao Yun Ziao, and the proud and noble Suyuxi, his eyes became even hotter. This kind of heat made him unable to bear it, and he directly killed them with the blood prison sealing sword. For him, even if he has a nine-headed monster torturing him, dealing with three rookies like Zhang Zizai is not something that can be easily captured. Yun Ziao and Ning Mufeng's piano and flute sounds had already sounded, and they turned directly into gold and iron horses, charging towards Xuanhuan. Their piano and flute sounds directly turned into a storm of strong winds and clouds, using their talents. It shows that if it were not for the lack of realm and the lack of attack power, this method is indeed high-end. If it were to be of the same level, none of the 10 Xuanhuan would be an opponent of their rhythm storm. They were basically all at the back, and the one who really stood in front was Qingfeng Longke. With Zhang Zizai's current cultivation level, it was a joke to fight against this guy. As long as his totem ability could come in handy, he could only stand from the side. He fired the time-breaking blade and the sky-breaking slash, but he didn't even bring out the 33 killing god mysterious soldiers. Even so, facing this ancient god who was in a bad state, he still had little resistance. Xuanhuan sneered, and the blood prison sealing sword chi came with a violent attack. Wherever it went, whether it was the green blade storm or the sound of the piano and flute, it was directly torn apart. Zhang Zizai's time-breaking blade hit him, causing he paused for a moment. Under the overwhelming strength, it was still a futile effort. Die, he rushed over and saw at a glance that the green wind dragon bird was the most threatening, so he pierced it with a sword, causing a crisis of death in an instant. The green wind dragon bird dodged quickly, but even with its speed, the blood prison sealing sword chi passed by it and tore a large piece of its feather scales. The green wind dragon bird screamed and dodged. As soon as it met, it lost part of its combat power. Without the green wind dragon bird blocking it, the power of this ancient god would be fatal to Zhang Zizai and his people. His realm is only the 5th level of the initial god realm, and he is still a long way from the ancient god. Although this Xuemingzi looks young, he is nearly 100 years old and has practiced for hundreds of years. In the origin continent, he is Zhang Zizai's grandfather. After becoming a god, the ancient god's body and soul will undergo a huge transformation. The ancient god's body with a lifespan of 10,000 years and the immortal soul that can be reincarnated will also undergo a transformation. The source in the body will transform into the divine source. The divine source is a fully formed source power. The ancient god's source power in it is more powerful than the power of origin. Even if Xuemingzi is tortured again, the blood prison sword energy displayed by his ancient god source power is difficult for them to resist with ordinary source power. The worst ancient god source power is better than the top source power in quality. Although Zhang Zizai's source power of destruction comes from a place higher than the 9th level of the source, it is much better than other source powers, but it cannot be compared with the ancient god source power. Xuemingzi relies on this ancient god source power to kill people everywhere. Holy Dragon Totem. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 849. After wounding Qingfeng Longke, he rushed forward with a big laugh. He first locked onto Zhang Zizai, because Zhang Zizai looked the weakest, but he obviously had the most treasures on him, enough for Xuemingzi to want to kill him first. At this moment, Zhang Zizai was in an absolute crisis. This crisis was too terrible, and he had no way to resist it. Under the blood prison sealing sword chi, even Qingfeng Longke's protection was too late. Wuliang, time-breaking blade. In a hurry, Zhang Zizai used a time-breaking blade to hit the blood prison sealing sword chi. At the moment when the sword chi stagnated, he dodged the attack, but he was also in a mess. What kind of power is this? It's quite interesting, but how can you hide with 2 sword chi? Xuemingzi sneered, and this time he killed 2 sword chi in succession, directly tearing through Yun Xiao's attack from the side, and crushing Zhang Zizai's head again. This time it seemed that he couldn't avoid it at all. At this critical moment, Zhang Zizai was a little confused. Fortunately, at this moment, a beautiful figure suddenly appeared in front of him. The snow-white sword in his hand fluttered leisurely, and actually blocked the violent sword energy. He rolled to the side with Zhang Zizai. For a while, the soft jade was in his arms, and the fragrance was fragrant. He touched it a few times unintentionally, which was a perfect experience. Without much, he knew who saved him, naturally Xuanhuan. Without much, he also knew that Xuanhuan could not inherit the inheritance of the god of killing in such a short time. He just saw that there were still many fluorescent lights on the corpse of the god of killing. This can only mean that this girl gave up the inheritance of the god of killing temporarily in order to save herself and came to save herself. "Are you okay?" She pulled Zhang Zizai to stand up quickly and asked concernedly. "It's okay. Finally, I let you save the beauty once," Zhang Zizai said. "I am a hero, you are a beauty." Xuanhuan rolled her eyes. She was about to die, and she was still doing this. She really didn't know whether to laugh or cry. But when she faced Xuemingzi again, she was under great pressure. "Oh, you even gave up the inheritance of the god of death to save him. It seems that you two are still deeply in love. It just seems that you two are not as well matched as the two of them. They are evenly matched over there, but why do you seem to be paired with trash?" Xuemingzi teased. After knowing that the 4 of them were 2 pairs, he was even more excited. Nothing is more fulfilling and more satisfying than stealing someone's love. It's none of your business. You should think about how to kneel down and beg for mercy, so that I can leave you a whole body. Xuanhuan was so angry that she even swore. It was difficult for her to show murderous aura, but now she was full of murderous aura. Zhang Zizai was almost killed by her just now, and she was already very angry. Xuemingzi came, and she obviously couldn't continue. In fact, It was okay. As long as Xuemingzi was dealt with, they would be safe. The only problem was that even the current Xuemingzi was not easy to deal with. Girl, you are so arrogant and seem to have a hard temper, but I have ways to make you weak all over. Xuemingzi laughed, raised his sword again, and walked forward with a cold face. For him, there were only so many people in the God of Killing Ruins. As long as Zhang Zizai was dealt with, everything would be done. It was not the first time that he suppressed a proud person to kneel down and beg for mercy. You all help me together, especially you, with the power of your totem, Xuanhuan said to Zhang Zizai. I understand the power of Zhang Zizai's totem, combined with Xuanhuan's fighting power, still had a little capital for confrontation. In addition, Yun Xiao and the others could also cause great harassment to Xuemingzi. This duel was burning fiercely at this moment. Zhang Zizai now knows that Xuanhuan is actually completely different from her sister. Her sister inherited her mother's totem. Her natal totem is a fox, which is charming. After evolving to the godly lord level, it is no problem to seduce all living beings. But Xuanhuan completely inherited the totem of her father, the king of the gods. This is where she is strong. Her totem is called, the totem of the eternal supreme god city. Her natal totem is a city. This is a very rare totem in the godly domain. Everyone knows that only the king of the gods has this extremely special totem. Everything exists in their totem city, and even living beings can be seen living in it. And the godly lord level evolution source Eternal Supreme allows Xuanhuan to have the Eternal Supreme God body, which is a body that is countless times more terrifying than the Taiji demon dragon transformation. In fact, this is the body of the ancient god level, which can allow Xuanhuan to have a body equivalent to the ancient god in advance and have a lifespan of tens of thousands of years. With her semi-god soul, she is actually only missing the ancient god source power. After she becomes a god, her eternal supreme god body will allow her to have a body comparable to that of a god. This top-level evolution source is rare in the god realm. The eternal supreme can be ranked among the god realm god-level totems, and is definitely the top totem of the pyramid. At least, it is much stronger than Yan Qingqi's 8-part pagoda. However, Zhang Zizai's infinite time and space is a totem that has been lost for a long time. In the outside world, it is even more amazing than the Eternal Supreme. The power of time and space is not that simple. What Zhang Zizai is digging now is just the tip of the iceberg of this totem's ability. The Taibei Supreme Sword that the King of Dushen gave Xuanhuan is also very powerful. As a god-level totem weapon, its level is definitely stronger than the Blood Prison Sealing Sword, but Xuanhuan cannot yet exert its full lethality. In fact, it is obvious that Xuanhuan is the one who can inherit the mantle of the King of the Capital God among the two sisters, so the King of the Capital God has higher expectations for her, but there is no doubt that Xuanhuan is smarter and more tactful, and she has her own path to follow. Her fighting style, like her totem, is domineering and sacred. During the battle, a huge city appeared around her, and those buildings and people coming and going seemed to be real. All of this is the root of Xuanhuan's power. When her eternal supreme divine body was revealed, her skin looked like white jade, exuding a pearl-like luster, and she was as beautiful as a fairy. If she becomes a god, she can crush Xuemingzi to death with one finger. But now, Xuemingzi's blood prison sword energy can still easily tear her attack. The life and death of the four of them all depend on this battle, but Zhang Zizai knows very well that if there is no deeper trump card, they are likely to be defeated, because he saw that Xuemingzi seemed to be able to gradually get rid of the nine-headed monster. He thought of the Wuxian talisman, but once the Wuxian talisman came out, he had to kill someone first, otherwise he would die. There was no one here that he could kill, and killing one person would not be enough to deal with Xuemingzi, unless he killed Xuanhuan and the others. That was even more impossible. The environment here was completely different from when the Zikan realm invaded. Holy Dragon Totem. Author, Feng Qingyang. Chapter 850. In all the battles, Zhang Zizai would never let a girl stand in front of him, but this time there was really no way. Suyuexi was the strongest here, so Zhang Zizai could only do his best to assist her together with Yun Xiao and Ning Mufeng. At the same time, the Qingfeng dragon bird controlled by his beast-taming talisman was also a great fighting force. Under Zhang Zizai's command, it launched the Qing Blade Storm and Qing Long transformation attacks on Xueming's flank. Under the harassment of the nine-headed monster, Xueming's fighting power was only 50% at most, but judging from the state of the nine-headed monster, this proportion would gradually increase. Xueming's was a little anxious. If he dealt with the nine-headed monster and then attacked, Zhang Zizai and the others would have been defeated by then. After all, he was an ancient god. Now, Suyuexi and the others' attack was equivalent to joining forces with the nine-headed monster. Xueming's was actually facing enemies on two fronts. The Qingfeng dragon bird's Qing blade storm swept everywhere, and his blood prison sealing sword could form a blood-colored shield around his body to block all these attacks. At this juncture, Suyuexi suppressed with the Tebei Supreme Divine Sword, and at the same time Ning Mufeng and Yun Xiao's Cloud Storm attacked. To Zhang Zizai and the others, the sound of the piano and flute was a beautiful piece of music, but to Xueming's, it was a demonic sound that disturbed his soul. If it was normal, it might have almost no effect on him, but the nine-headed monster was also disturbing his soul. Under the dual effects, he fell into an extremely manic state. Boom boom boom. This battle was extremely tragic. It was the first time that Suyuexi fought with such a ferocious ancient god. This was definitely a new experience for her. She had sparred with the ancient gods before, but who among the people of the God King Palace dared to really kill her? When Xueming's attacked, he had no mercy on women. His blood prison sword energy was very domineering, and the sword fighting tactics he displayed were equally amazing. The surging sword energy rushed over like a pale wave, covering the ground and completely suppressing Suyuexi's eternal supreme divine city Totem. In the blink of an eye, it caused her a fatal crisis. This thrilling moment made her scalp numb. Perhaps at this moment, she knew the meaning of being strong and why she longed for power. But she wondered if it was a little late to understand this truth now. She suddenly remembered Zhang Zizai's words. The purpose of his cultivation was to protect, and she had a bigger goal, which was instilled in her by her father. But now seeing these friends around her, she knew that if she retreated, they would be miserable, and she couldn't bear it. All this was the courage for her to hold on. At this moment, man's blood prison seal sword energy rushed over and defeated her sword path. The destructive power brought by the ancient god's source power completely suppressed her source power. Seeing that she was about to be swallowed by man's sword energy, at the moment when she was on the verge of life and death, suddenly an invisible blade hit the blood prison seal sword energy in front of her. At the moment when the blood prison seal sword energy stagnated, Suyuexi hurriedly dodged it and escaped danger. She looked back at Zhang Zizai, and saw that he looked at her firmly, saying, "Suyuexi, believe in yourself." Yeah, she nodded heavily, and resolutely dealt with Xueming's, because she knew that Zhang Zizai and the others were backing her up. Just now, when Xueming's attacked her, Qingfeng Longke also forced him to withdraw. This method is quite interesting. Xueming's narrowed his eyes and looked at Zhang Zizai. In his eyes, this was just an insignificant person. Girl, next, continue to enjoy my attack. You will soon find that all your struggles are in vain. There is an eternal truth in this world, that is, no matter how rebellious a mortal is, it is impossible to fight against the ancient gods. Even if I am only 1/10 of my state, I can make you a few people, unable to live or die. He. Who is so? I tell you what the eternal truth is, that is, the ancient gods will die, Zhang Zizai said. Do you have the right to speak? Xueming's smiled contemptuously. He has the capital to be so arrogant, because he still controls the overall situation and suppresses Xuanhuan. I'm telling you, I have plenty of ways to play with you. You can't leave the god of death ruins. Some of you will die here, and some of you will be imprisoned here for life. Whenever I feel like it, I will favor you too. Xuanhuan laughed wantonly. Thinking of his future life, he couldn't help but laugh secretly. All this seemed like a beautiful dream bestowed upon him by God. Really? But why do I feel that all your greed is a sign of your inner humility? A truly noble person or God would not care about your despicable behavior at all, Xuanhuan said in a deep voice. Who said I am a noble God? I am not noble, but I can crush you all the same, and I can also obtain the inheritance of the god of death, and I can also rule over you all the same. Xuanhuan laughed loudly. The question is, have you crushed them? Have you got it? Even if you get it, are you sure that with your will and vision, you can dominate? At your level, you can only be a demon that you can't stand. The real way of God must be noble and wise. She has a lot of her own ideas. In fact, she looks down on ancient gods like Xuanhuan, because in her eyes, his character is always humble, and everything he desires is exactly under his pattern. Oh, if it is a demon, it is worth it to get the inheritance of the god of killing and enjoy a beauty like you. Xuanhuan laughed. Xuanhuan didn't need to argue with him. In fact, when she talked to him, she was just telling herself what a real ancient god should be like. As the daughter of the king of the capital god, what kind of righteous path she should pursue. Xuanhuan was a vivid opposite, which formed a huge vigilance for her. Invisibly, her spiritual will was undergoing a huge transformation. When her heart became stronger, her combat effectiveness was also improving, especially with the cooperation of Zhang Zizai's infinite time-breaking blade. They had not run in, but Zhang Zizai must know what she was thinking. He could often use the infinite time-breaking blade at the most correct time and directly hit Xuanhuan, allowing Xuanhuan to get combat space. After having combat space, she performed better. Every time she made a move, she was actually comprehending the great way of God. The people who needed to be protected behind her, the justice that needed to be maintained in her heart, and the negative teaching materials in front of her made her heart more and more determined. Indistinctly, she always felt that she seemed to have touched that edge. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Holy Dragon Totem. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 851. Damn it, Xuanhuan was very annoyed. The nine-headed monster started to do evil again. The key point was that he almost suppressed Xuanhuan several times, and it happened that Zhang Zizai's magical power hit him at this time. Sometimes he couldn't even dodge. Once he was hit, his attack stagnated, and Xuanhuan could easily resolve it. I hope readers will remember our domain name Taiwan Novel Network rightward arrow. If you don't kill this guy first, they will be difficult to deal with. After thinking about this, Xuanhuan smiled strangely. This time he suppressed Xuanhuan again, pretending to attack, but changed directly in the middle. The violent blood prison sword energy all came towards Zhang Zizai. For a while, the blood-colored sword energy was simply blanketing the ground. Zhang Zizai suddenly faced such a death crisis, and he really had no way to resolve it. At this time, he could only pray that the Demon Lord Cauldron could help him block it. This was actually something he expected. But he didn't expect that Xuanhuan could come so quickly. She suddenly blocked in front of him, waving the Tebe Supreme Sword, and danced out thousands of phantoms at once. Those phantoms held long swords to block countless blood prison seal sword chi, but there was still power to tear through and hit her. Puff! A sword chi passed through her abdomen and almost hit the source, killing her on the spot. Even so, this kind of lethality is also very terrible. Xuanhuan screamed in pain and stepped back. When Zhang Zizai caught her, Her abdomen was already bleeding. It was distressing to see that her eyes were twitching and her eye sockets were red. She must be very uncomfortable, because the blood prison seal sword chi can kill into the internal organs. Hold on, Zhang Zizai used a large number of holy light talismans without saying anything. The healing effect was very fast. Suyuexi also quickly took out a pill. The pill should be given by the God King. The effect must be very good. With the holy light talisman to stop bleeding in time, and Zhang Zizai's purity talisman, she can initially dissolve the lethality of the blood prison sealing sword chi. Her injuries are stable and she should be able to recover soon. Thank you. Zhang Zizai looked at the woman in his arms. He was a little absent-minded. He didn't expect to let her save him this time. You have saved me countless times, and I still owe you a lot. I will pay you back slowly. Suyuexi looked at him with a little nostalgia. She didn't have time to be gentle or continue to stay in this embrace, because Xuemingzi came up again. After she quickly healed her wounds, she immediately rushed to the front and blocked Xuemingzi. Letting the girl face the enemy head-on, Zhang Zizai still felt a little uncomfortable, but some things are not something that can be desired. After all, Suyuexi is a person who ranks in the top 3 in the entire God realm and the entire Earth universe at this age. But judging from the current situation, she can't hold on for too long, and the situation is very dangerous for them. Especially, now Xuemingzi has learned to be smart, he is too lazy to tremble with Suyuexi, he only needs to attack other people, and he can let Suyuexi take the sword actively, so why not do such a simple method? You blocked the sword for him, it seems that your relationship is really extraordinary. I don't want to kill him anymore, because I want to see what his expression will be when he sees some scenes. When Xuemingzi thought of that scene, his whole body became excited and hot. The only thing Zhang Zizai can do now is to continue to use the time-breaking blade and the sky-splitting slash to help her, and at the same time pay attention to his position. Once he lets Xuemingzi find an opportunity to kill first, Suyuexi will be more passive. The situation was already very bad. But Zhang Zizai didn't expect that something worse could happen. He was concentrating on dealing with Xuemingzi, but he didn't expect the fatal attack that suddenly appeared behind him. He changed the direction of the infinite time-breaking blade and killed it behind him at the critical moment, and only then did he avoid a fatal blow at this fatal moment. Looking back suddenly, he saw a missing person. Yan Qingqi. He stood in the mist, lowered his head, his hair was disheveled, his clothes were messy, and he seemed to be completely torn apart. What was puzzling was that his eyes were gloomy and crazy, but there was a sneer at the corner of his mouth. He looked at Zhang Zizai ferociously, holding his sea-splitting divine halberd in his hand. If Zhang Zizai hadn't reacted quickly just now, he would have almost been killed by him. What do you mean? Zhang Zizai clearly felt that he seemed different after he disappeared and reappeared. Now he looked like a very dangerous person. I want to kill you. Yan Qingqi stuck out his tongue and licked the corner of his mouth. What grudges do you have? Wait until you can survive. I want to help deal with this Xuemingzi. Don't make trouble. We'll solve it later. I'll definitely accompany you, Zhang Zizai said in a deep voice. His current totem power is still quite effective against Xuemingzi. Without Zhang Zizai's assistance, Suyuexi can't hold on at all, especially now that she is injured. No, I'm going to kill you now. Who asked you to hold her? Who asked her to risk her life to save you? You are so cruel. I was tortured like this, but you didn't even look for me. You are still looking for your treasure. You are so cruel, he. Yan Qingqi laughed, his eyes filled with cold black air. So cruel, so despairing. I was tortured like this. Do you know how miserable I am? But you, a group of ruthless people, asterisk and bitches, actually left me like this. So cruel. Yan Qingqi came towards Zhang Zizai with the sea-splitting divine halberd. So, all 4 of you must die? You must die cleanly. I want revenge. Zhang Zizai, you are the first one, he. He seemed to have gone crazy. He couldn't control himself at all. When his eyes collided with Zhang Zizai's, he came to kill directly, and his totem, the 8th Division Pagoda, reappeared again. This time, the 8 high towers suppressed him, and he used the 3 styles of Yu Jinhai to crush him. His fighting power was the same as before, but at this moment, he was completely different. At this moment, he looked at Zhang Zizai with a weird look. At that moment, Zhang Zizai's head suddenly hurt, as if he was smashed by a hammer, and his whole brain was about to be torn apart. The Demon Lord Cauldron had been turned on to the maximum defense state, but it was still hit like this. It can be seen how powerful Yan Qingqi's soul attack is. However, Yan Qingqi does not have this kind of power at all. This does not belong to him. What on earth have you been through? Who is controlling you? Without Zhang Zizai's help, the situation over there is very bleak. Now is the most difficult time. It doesn't matter. What matters is that you are going to die. Yan Qingqi laughed, and the horrifying soul shock came again. Even though he was prepared this time and had the Demon Lord's Cauldron, Zhang Zizai's mind was still stabbed and went blank. At the same time, his 3 moves of Yu Jinhai had already reached Zhang Zizai's eyes, and the surging air waves almost tore him apart. He only recovered at the last moment, and used the time-breaking blade to alleviate the opponent's killing move again, and then he got a chance to breathe. Holy Dragon Totem. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 852. If this continues, I won't be able to help them. I will be killed by Yan Qingqi. It's not that he can't deal with Yan Qingqi, but the current Yan Qingqi is not just himself. He has been tortured, and the existence that tortured him has always existed. This shows that the threat of the god of death ruins is not just Xuanhuan. It's too difficult for them to survive here. The pressure on everyone is infinite. Just when Yan Qingqi was fighting Zhang Zizai frantically, what Zhang Zizai was worried about happened. Xuanhuan was very happy to see Yan Qingqi appear. He just took advantage of this opportunity to crush him. He still didn't fight with Suyuexi, but attacked their weak spots. The first one was Qingfeng Longke. He was caught by Xuanhuan in a fierce battle. He directly split Qingfeng Longke in half with a sword. The source beast of the beast control talisman was killed again, and Zhang Zizai was shocked. Originally, his soul was about to be torn apart by Yan Qingqi. Now that Qingfeng Longke died in battle, he was in a desperate situation. It was even more impossible for him to help others. So, as expected, Yun Xiao and Ning Mufeng had caused such a great harassment to Xuanhuan that he could not escape. After he suppressed Suyuexi, he appeared directly in front of the 2 of them. After a violent killing, the roughness of the ancient god's source power completely suppressed the 2 of them, causing them to fall to the ground with heavy injuries. Both of them were motionless, with sword marks all over their bodies, and they were dying. Xuanhuan did not kill them, but this heavy injury directly made them fall into a severe coma and unconscious. I am afraid that they will not be able to recover to normal in half a year. But now, they don't have half a year left. Now only Suyuexi and Zhang Zizai are left. They also let Xuanhuan and Yan Qingqi hold them back respectively. But the current situation has become extremely bad. The 4 of them have almost no hope. Even Xuanhuan couldn't help laughing and said, "You are so noble, but in the end you still have to kneel in front of a humble person like me and give me a asterisk to." Yan Qingqi made him want to laugh. He could see that this person and Zhang Zizai were in the same group, but he turned against them at this time, which directly led to the balance being broken. "Brother, I have to thank you very much," Xuanhuan smiled and said to Yan Qingqi, but Yan Qingqi ignored him. Yan Qingqi had no other eyes. On the surface, they are upright disciples, but they kill each other behind the scenes, haha. The situation developed like this, and Xuemingzi almost laughed to death. He now looked at his only opponent Suyuexi with a playful expression. He was thinking about how to play next. So pitiful, he chuckled, but he didn't relax his hands. He grasped the god-level totem weapon, the blood prison sealing sword, again and continued to suppress Suyuexi. Countless blood-colored sword chi blocked all of Suyuexi's escape routes. He didn't bother to do so many tricks. Now he could completely suppress Suyuexi with only the ancient god's source power. Under his suppression, Suyuexi retreated step by step. What made her more worried was that on Zhang Zizai's side, Yan Qingqi didn't know where he got the soul shock means, and he was also constantly penetrating the demon lord cauldron. It seemed that Zhang Zizai couldn't hold on either. She felt a trace of despair in her heart. In such a desperate situation, it seemed that there was no way out. At the last moment, she and Zhang Zizai looked at each other, and they wanted to smile bitterly. During this period, she felt a different life. She was really grateful to Zhang Zizai. She had thought about how she would live in the future, but the world didn't seem to give her this opportunity. Now it seems that the two of them are just like a pair of miserable mandarin ducks. She thought Zhang Zizai should give up. But what she didn't expect was that when their eyes met, she saw Zhang Zizai's strong inner strength. Remember why you came to the God King battlefield. Zhang Zizai faced Yan Qingqi's brutal suppression. He was telling Suyuexi and himself to become a god. Suyuexi murmured under Xuemingzi's suppression. Then now, isn't it the best time to become a god? Can you be in such a desperate situation in the God King Palace? Do you need to protect your friends like this in the God King Palace? Zhang Zizai looked at her with fiery eyes. Suyuexi was exploring the way to become a god. In fact, he was also exploring. He followed from the beginning just to see how Randi could become a god. Now, he and Suyuexi are looking for this way together. Suyuexi saw the severely injured Yun Ziao and Ning Mufeng. They were a couple of gods, but now they were severely injured and unconscious. In fact, she didn't blame Yan Qingqi, so she still wanted to save him. She had so many things she wanted to do. She really had never wanted power as much as she did now. I want to become a god, so that I can tell this person what is noble and wise. I want to become a god, so that I can protect my friends and my dignity. My father can't give me all this, only I can give it to myself. Her heart seemed to be burning, she had never felt her blood boiling like a thorn, her eyes so red. Evil spirits, insidious harmers, kill them. This is the true God. Zhang Zizai's eyes were burning, his soul was impacted by Yan Qingqi, so he had to struggle with this sentence, but he still roared out. In fact, his heart at this time was connected with Suyuexi. True God, these two words brought a huge shock to Suyuexi. She suddenly thought that there were countless gods in this earthly realm, but there were not many true gods recognized by Zhang Zizai in her heart. The true God was the God she imagined she wanted to become. With the true God in your heart, you can stand tall on the ground, and you have no regrets in your heart. You walk the holy road and open a magnificent divine path. Protecting morality and walking the path, isn't it your God's will? If she can't think of it, Zhang Zizai will think of it for her. Suyuexi's whole body was burning with raging fire. This was invisible fire. The fire in her eyes almost burned Su Mingzi's body. At this moment, the light on her body was so shining that Su Mingzi actually I feel ashamed of myself, like a mouse in a dark corner who sees the flying phoenix. I will tell you that the only thing you can do now is to endure my ravage. Xuemingzi was also furious. He hated this feeling, so he suppressed it again. He just wanted to suppress such a proud woman. Tremble. Kill him. Zhang Zizai's rude roar came from the roar of a blue dragon. The entire ruins of the god of death were shaking and making a roaring sound. The endless fog was thrown away by the sound, and the ground seemed to be restored. Qingming. Kill him. Suyuexi gritted her teeth. She felt like her body was about to explode. The endless power was transforming crazily. When she yelled this sentence to Xue Mingzi, her life was cut in half by the sentence. Half of it is human in the front, and half of it is God in the back.